Many marriages end because of physical intimacy issues. Many times divorce occurs because of unfaithfulness of one or both spouses. Other marriages struggle year upon year because of physical intimacy issues. We have found that the root of these issues stem from our understanding of what true physical intimacy in marriage is. This is mainly because we get our image of physical intimacy from the society we live in, and we shouldn't. We should get our image from what God's Word says.
Also, churches and Christian institutions do not discuss what real physical intimacy looks like from a biblical perspective. So today, that is what we will be discussing. In this episode, we will look at how to apply the principles of the words of Paul from Colossians 3:18 through 19 towards physical intimacy in marriage, so stay tuned.
Okay, we're going to make a disclaimer up front. If we start acting goofy and looking under the table, we got our dog out here trying to be nosy.
Yep, he's
lonely.
His head in my lap.
He's lonely. Anyways,
his friend's outside.
This is our third or fourth, I think it's our fourth episode in this series we're doing in Colossians chapter 3, verses 18 through 19, talking about basically the marriage roles in a Christian marriage, how a husband and wife should interact with each other according to God's Word. And we're using two simple verses, two simple instructions from Paul. Before we begin, here we go. I said I wasn't going to bring this up again, but when I think about this topic we're doing today, I'm reminded about what Joe Evans said in his video 3 weeks ago. That was the one where he was misinterpreting 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. And talking about how wives should fear their husbands and call them Lord. That husbands should lord over their wives. You know, he kept talking about wives should fear and wives should fear. Fear and trembling, fear and trembling. And I get it, the word in Greek that Peter uses is phobos, and it does mean fear. But I thought it was very dangerous. And he stopped right before the treat your wife like the weaker vessel. He didn't want to talk about that. And Joel Webber wants to do himself any favors. He would cover verse 7 of 1 Peter chapter 3 and discuss what it means to treat your wife like a weaker vessel. They'll probably say because they're just not capable of doing anything right. They're just they can't do it on their own, so you got to do it. He probably won't do that right here. Well, anyway, I thought that whole episode where Joe Webber was saying that wives should fear their husbands. I thought that was strange because he didn't really give it any context. Well, what's that mean? How should you fear them? Like that they're like going to punish you or something, or like you should just always be cowering down. Mm-hmm. He didn't give it context. So here's the problem: when you don't give it proper context, and you talk about all these different roles in marriage, and I got thinking this is kind of dangerous. So Joel Webben has 158 followers, 158,000. Kind of like we got 158. Mm-hmm. No, we got a couple thousand. But he has 158,000 followers on YouTube and 95,000 followers on X. And I don't know how many subscribe to his website or Rumble or whatever them other. I'm sure he's on Truth Social because he's a big Trump guy. He's probably got 500,000 on Donald Trump's website. But so from what I know, YouTube and Twitter, 250,000 people follow Joe Webben. What do you think the percentage of women that probably low, 10%?
Yeah, if that matters.
So 90%, let's say 75% of that, 200,000 men probably watched that video where Joe Webben says that wives should fear their husbands. That's dangerous. That's dangerous to me. So, Lori, why do you think these we're talking about sexual intimacy between a husband and wife in marriage. So these men that watched that video about Joe Webben saying, wives, you got to fear your husbands. The Bible says it. It says phobos, fear and trembling. So when it comes to sexual intimacy, how do you think these men watching that video, what do you think they took from that, from Joe Webben?
Probably that they should demand from their wives, sexual intimacy when they want it, and wife should give it up whenever the men want it, and they just have to do it because it's their obligation, and it's not out of love or anything else. It's just you're my wife, and you do what I say.
Fear and trembling. You might say, and some of you that subscribe to Joel Webbin and you like Joel Webbin, you might say, well, that's not what he means. Well, the problem is he didn't clarify that. He just said the word means fear and trembling. So just an average, ordinary guy watching that say, well, there you go. See, you got to fear me, woman. Mm-hmm. You got to fear me and call me Lord. And the same thing with Doug Wilson too. But him and Joe Webbin kind of had a falling out. So now Doug Wilson's probably going to say, oh, Joe's got them women. He's going to have all these men beating up their wives now because he said that you got to fear. But it ain't no different than what some of Doug Wilson's writings, talking about disciplining your wives and some of the and even Doug Wilson's wife have wrote books about how you're supposed to, perform on demand to your husbands. But anyway, I'm Joey.
I'm Lori.
We are Christ-centered marriage and family, and we're continuing our episodes on Colossians chapter 3, verse 18 through 19. And next week, we're going to summarize everything. So if you've not watched our videos, hopefully you'll watch our episodes. If you've not watched them, next week we're going to do a quick summary to where we talked about submission in general, according to Paul's words, and then we talked about how that relates to handling finances in marriage. Because a lot of married couples, husbands and wives, they don't know how we should handle finances. Should she handle it? Should I handle it? Should we both handle it? Or should we just forget about it and just live in financial ruin? A lot of marriages live in financial ruin. So, you can use this principle of husbands submitting to the wife submitting to the husband, and husbands loving wives unconditionally, not being harsh toward her towards all these different aspects of marriage, finances. Then we talked about faith, and we're talking about physical intimacy today. And I think next week we're going to sum it up, maybe list some things we didn't mention. And I'm working on a new series. We're going to call it What is Marriage? And we're going to probably go 3 or 4 episodes. What is marriage? So we're going to work on that. So look forward to that. We're going to keep this episode short and to the point, mainly to kind of counteract all the bad information out there on both ends of the extremes. We won't get too specific or too personal because, we don't want to know your business, and so you don't need to know our business. Mm-hmm. We want to speak on some of the misconceptions in this area, physical intimacy, and give you some practical Christian advice. And we're going to use the text that Colossians 3:18 through 19. The first thing people think about when they think of the term submission in marriage is sexual. I mean, you just got to, minute, when I say, okay, today we're going to look at Colossians 3:18 through 19. Wives, submit to your husband. What's the first thing that a lot of people think about? That means, serve your husband, cook and clean, and sex on demand. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing they think about. But it pertains to all aspects of marriage: physical, spiritual, emotional. And then he says for husband to love your wife, and he uses that term agapete, which means the unconditional love. That the love where you put yourself lower than your wife. Your wife comes before you. Her needs become before you. So in all these aspects, financially, spiritually, and even physically, you look at her needs, and that's how you love your wife. And don't be harsh. Don't be harsh. We're going to look at that today. Physical submission can be a difficult thing, but it shouldn't be if we follow the principles laid out in God's word. So let me read that here real quick. Again, I've read it before, so I'll read it again. Colossians 3:18, and I'm reading from the English Standard because I like the way some of their translations are. Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Some of your versions may say do not be bitter or embittered. The English Standard uses the harsh, and I like that. So, Lori, why would it be, and just in general, why would some wives have a problem being submissive physically to their husband?
If the husband doesn't treat her lovingly, like you talked about, loving your wives, if he never shows her any non-sexual affection, because if the only time you show your wife affection is when you want something, it's not going to be received very well. If your husband isn't leading you in the way God wants him to lead you, whether it's finances or spiritually or whatever, where it makes you feel safe or protected, then you're not going to want to do that. It can be very difficult to do that. If he treats it like it's an obligation, you have to, whether you want to or not. That's makes it difficult. So if you don't feel loved and protected, outside of physical intimacy, you're not going to really want to participate in physical intimacy.
I thought of something off script here. It just popped in my head, and this does not pertain to you. You are not this way. But do you think? Don't name any names, because you probably think of somebody. Do you think there's a lot of women out there, wives, that they don't care how their husband act. They don't care if their husband caters to them, or if their husband just not even there. They not going to submit to them physically anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
And that's a problem too. So, and you might have a lot of good husbands out there just doing their best, being as sweet as they can be, and the best husbands, and the wives just don't care. You don't care, whatever. And you know what that does? When a husband is like that to his wife, just serving her hand over foot, and the sweetest he can be. And when he gets getting rejected, you know what's going to cause that to happen to that husband, right?
He's probably going to go somewhere else.
Or yeah.
Or leave.
Yeah, or
just disassociate, maybe.
Yeah, and just feel like, there's no hope. I'm just going to be miserable the rest of my life. And he might wander around. And the same thing for the husband. There's a lot of husband that has wives that are just sweet as they can be, and the husband's like, I don't got no time for you. I don't have no interest in you physically.
Yeah.
It causes her to want to wonder. But I think the first thing we need to establish is that God created physical intimacy to be enjoyed between a man and a woman in marriage. We're not going to get too technical. We've done that before. We may do it again. I'm just going to brush over it real quick. This is all part of God's design. The first thing we notice from Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God commands us to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And, how do we do that? That it's the version of me scientifically. They teach that stuff in school, and they taught it when I was in school. The reproduction. How does reproduction act? A man and a woman get together. So God designed this act of the husband and the wife. The husband and the wife, not just man and woman. Husband and wife getting together, performing that physical act that causes procreation. That's what God, He designed that. God also intended for this act of physical intimacy to be enjoyed between a husband and a wife. There's a way for them to experience physical oneness. It's emotionally satisfying, it's physically satisfying, spiritually satisfying. You become together. Like Ryan and Selena say that the Fredericks, fierce marriage. They say when you come together physically, it's the way you renew your covenant. That's the way they put it. I thought it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to them. Fierce marriage. God also, I considered talking about the idea of men and women getting married and not wanting to have children, but I decided against it. Maybe one day we'll do an episode about that. But do you think it's wise for women, young people? I'm not talking about us in our 40s or 50s. When we got married, it was the baby making days were over. But people in their 20s and early 30s, they get married and don't want to have kids. Do you think, even if they could, they got no kids, no kids, woman doesn't have kids and the guy doesn't have kids, they get married 20, 25, we don't want to have kids. Do you think that's God's plan for marriage?
It's not what he wanted.
They're able to. Mm-hmm. That's another topic. Okay, anyway, Another topic. I will say, however, one quick thing. If a young woman and a young man get married, the woman could physically have a baby. Nothing physically wrong with her. But she doesn't want to. But the husband does. I want to have a baby. I want us to have children. She says, I don't want to have children. I want my career or this or that or whatever. Is she being submissive to him? According to God, she's not. According to Paul in the Bible, she's not being submissive to her husband. And likewise, if the young wife says, Honey, husband, I'm ready to have kids. I don't want to have kids. We don't want to have kids. I don't want to have kids. Let's wait. Let's wait. Let's wait. And then, and later on, 5 years come down the road and say, let's keep waiting. Let's keep waiting. And then next thing you know, well, you can't have kids. So, in the same way, if the wife wants to have babies, but the husband does not, he's sinning against her. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, and I just, one thing to add to that is back, in one of our previous episodes, we talked about how to prepare for marriage, and that's one of the things you have to be clear on before you get married is if you want to have children or not.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have that discussion after you get married. Then
Yep.
you might be stuck with the other, not wanting to. You want to, but your husband doesn't or whatever, then you're fighting that battle. So that's something you need to work out before you get married.
I have listened to some great arguments from people that say if a man and a woman could both get together and make a baby, there's nothing wrong with them and physically that they could not make a baby, but they refuse to. That could be against God's will. That's an argument, but I'm not going to get into that now. You have anything else to add? I
don't think so.
Okay, so let's go on. Before we speak about a wife being in submission to her husband physically, I want to discuss the husband's part. Because in everything in marriage, the husband leads the way. And we're going to talk about that, but not like Doug Wilson talks about it, or even Eric Kahn, or even Brian Suave, or that Isner guy, or Joe Webbin, all a whole bunch. They are the patriarchy group where the husband is in charge, the wife stays home and make babies, and they use that whole have your quiver full. So like the more babies you have, the more children you have, the more spiritual you are. So they have 6 and 10 and 12 kids, and I don't think that's necessarily what God expects. If you have 2 kids or if you have 10, I don't think God's gonna say you didn't have 10 kids, or He may only allow you to have one, and you may want to have kids. There are a lot of husbands and wives that desperately want children, but God would not allow it for some reason. But Paul is not speaking. Let's look at husband. Let me read verse 19 again. Husbands, love your wives. That's it. Agapete. That's what the word is. Agapete, which means love your wife unconditionally. Just like Jesus Christ loves us. God loved us unconditionally that He sent His Son to die for us. And with the same verbiage, He's telling us to love our wives unconditionally, sacrificially, and do not be harsh with her. Okay, take it into context. I know Paul's not saying specifically as far as sexual intimacy. He's not saying those words, but he's using it in the whole marriage picture, the complete picture of marriage. Every aspect of marriage, I'm supposed to love her unconditionally and not be harsh towards her. So, taking this text here and applying it to physical intimacy, simply put, the husband is to lead the way. Not saying, okay, this is what we're going to do and you better like it. That's not what we're going to talk about. Totally opposite. So I'm going to give you a totally different perspective than what you may have heard from Doug Wilson or Joe Webbin or whoever else. So notice what Paul says for the husband here. Love your wives. Do not be harsh with your wife. Husband, if you want your wife to submit to you, some of the men ain't going to like this. They're going to turn this off, aren't they? They're going to say, no wonder he don't like Joe Webbin. They're going to call me soft. They're going to call me a beta male, but whatever. You know what? Instead of Joe Webbin, turn on Family Life. They got what's their name, Dave and Ann on Family Life. That's a good show. They would like this. You need to love her unconditionally. Love your wife unconditionally first. And do not be harsh. Do not be demanding or abusive toward her. I like to add, like 1 Peter instructs, in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, the one that Joel Webbin didn't want to talk about. Treat her like a weaker vessel. And that word basically means something weak and fragile. Kind of like you would get a clay vase. You handle it and you don't just throw it down and beat on it. You got to handle it with care and gently, like this coffee cup would break. You handle it with care, be gentle because it's fragile. That's the picture Peter's trying to make about husbands. loving your wives like the weaker vessel, because they are fragile. Be gentle and kind with them. Speak to her with kindness. Do not be demanding of her. Lighten her load sometimes. Take, hey, husbands, I get it. You work. And I guarantee 95% of your wives out there will work too. Because I don't know very many husbands that have wives that stay home. I do know a few. But whoever's watching this video, your wife probably works too. So don't expect her to do everything at home. Help her with the kids. She shouldn't have to be the only parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do not be demanding of her. Help her around the house. Maybe if you don't know, I don't know what to do. Ask her, what can I do to help you around the house? She'll tell you. She'll tell you. Bear some of her burdens. Like, I'm not saying I'm the best helper around the house, but one of the things I do is I do the groceries and I do the budget, and I go run errands, so she don't have to. And on top of all her schoolwork, the school teaching stuff she's got to do, now I got to go to the grocery store, and I got to do this, do that. So I do some of those things, so she don't have to worry about it. Make her feel appreciated. Be considerate of her needs long before the physical need starts. Don't say like, okay, what time is it? It's like 7:53. It's like I got 2 hours to get her sweet. I got 2 hours to sweeten her up. Well, you should have started that probably a month ago. And that should be an ongoing thing. Know her love languages. If you don't know what that means, look up Love Languages, Gary Chapman. You can buy that book. You can probably get an article online about it. Know her, take a love language test. Know what she likes. Because some of you guys, you might be trying, but you might be trying the wrong way. You might be, I give her gifts, and I give her gifts, and I give her gifts, and she's probably got all that stuff stacked up in the closet. Mm-hmm. It may not be her love language. Maybe you need to sit down to her and say, hey, let's watch a TV show or something, or read a book together. Or just sit down with them. Okay. Just listen. Mm-hmm, yep. Okay. Yep. Oh, hold on. What did you just say? Okay. Let me understand you. Talk and listen and understand. Appreciate her. If she likes quality time, give up some of your time. I'd say do that anyways, whether she likes it or not. Give up some of your time. Let her know that I'm valuing you. I'm valuing being with you, and I'm giving up some of my things so I can be with you. Get out of their garage. Quit volunteering to stay late at work when you don't have to. If you don't need the money, don't stay late just because you want to stay late. Don't go to the golf course 3 or 4 times a week or hunting 3 or 4 times a week. You get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. If she likes gifts, give her gifts. Surprise her with stuff. I'm gonna tell on myself here. One of the gifts I gave her was this. Some of you ladies are probably saying, yeah, I know what that is. It's a blanket robe. I guess it's what it's called. Blanket robe.
Pretty much. It's got a hood on it.
Yeah.
You can just wrap it around you.
Yeah. That was a good one, huh?
Yeah.
I got brownie points on that one. Yeah. Make her feel valued. Be a real man. A real man is not someone that says, this is what I want you to do and you're going to do it or else. A real man is somebody that puts her first, makes her feel valued, and then she'll respond. It'll soften her up. Be a real husband. Be a responsible husband. Take the lead. Have a good handle on the family affairs to where she ain't got to worry about anything because you're in control. Not that you're a micromanager, but you're in control, and she ain't got to worry about things because it's going to be hard to be physical intimate when you're worried about your husband not being able to pay the bills or being irresponsible or staying up playing Xbox or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Not doing your part, not being a man. Be a man. And some of you guys are in your 20s and 30s. Time to quit being a kid. Be a man. Take away her worries and fears. She shouldn't have to worry about anything because you are calming her fears. You're helping her think, everything's good. Everything's well. I don't have to worry about anything. Doing these things helps a wife want to submit to a husband. It's not what Joe Webben would say. So, after saying all this, what are some things a husband can do to help her want to submit to him physically? What did I miss?
Well, I think you mentioned everything. Spend time with her, show her affection without the expectation of physical intimacy. That's a big one. For me anyway. Make sure that it's not the only time you hold hands or put your arm around me or whatever. So that's a big one. Don't do anything to question your loyalty to her, whether it's actually having an affair or just being friends with a woman outside of your marriage. That's not okay. A lot of people do that, but it's not okay. And it goes for the wives too. Don't be friends with men outside of your marriage. So don't be texting people that if you're a man, don't text other women or call them or talk to them on social media, whatever. Those things make her question your loyalty to her. So don't do anything that's going to make her feel like you might be betraying her or, like you said, taking care of the finances. I don't have to worry about whether the bills are paid or not because I know he's going to do that. I know, and he can do things that there's probably a lot of men nowadays that can't do. Like if the heater's not working, I know he can go up there and try to figure out what's wrong with it. He might end up having to call somebody to repair it, but he can at least look at it and try to figure out what's wrong with it.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Finish.
He can work on the cars. He can do, kind of do basic repairs around the house. So I don't have to worry about stuff like that. So
when a water faucet keeps spraying, it won't stop.
Yeah.
I can fix it.
Yep. So just those things that, like you said, make you feel safe and things women have enough things to worry about as far as kids and, if you work, like you said, I'm a teacher, so I got a lot of stress there, just that by itself. So whatever he does like that kind of helps take away the things for me to stress over. So that helps.
Imagine the last week if you were like, hey, the oven doesn't work. I'm trying to cook something in the oven and it doesn't work. And I'm thinking, I ain't got time for that. I'm playing a game. I ain't got time for that, what else was it? Then on the sprayer on the sink doesn't stop. I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that, woman.
We got snowed in this past week. And on the same day, the heat went out and the oven wasn't working. Yeah. He was like up in while he was working on the heater, I went, the oven's not coming on. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I was like, no. Well, anyway, he ended up getting both of them working. He figured out there might have been some kind of energy surge or something that just happened.
But I can tell you, but hey, I can tell you, if I would have said, I'm sorry, I don't have time to mess with that, I might as well just go jump in the truck and sleep there tonight. Mm-hmm. I might as well sleep in my truck tonight. But that's a good example of me taking away your worries that day. Mm-hmm. I fixed the oven. And it was if you're wondering what was it, it was a power thing, and we had a power spike. So I figured it out. But there are a lot of husbands that just don't want to deal with that stuff, and it makes their wife stress out. They stress. Don't let your wife stress. Don't let them stress. Don't let them stress. Hey, what are we gonna do about this bill? What are we gonna do about this bill? I should say, okay, I got this bill. Don't worry about it. I got it. And she might say, okay. He said, don't worry about it. And I think, yeah, don't worry about it. Some man, here's his bill. I'll take care of it. I gotta go. Don't do that. You ain't gonna get a lot of quality time in the bedroom. You got anything else to add before we move on?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna let you address this whole submission part, and we're gonna wrap it up. We're just about done here. Verse 18. You might think, well, Joey, you talked a lot about what husbands should do, but you hadn't addressed the wife part. Yeah, because the husband's more important than the wife, because the husband takes the lead. And what I mean by that, the husband sets the table with love and kindness and generosity and grace and not being harsh. And then the wife responds because the husband treats her in a special loving way. That's it. Not just, I'm the husband, I'm the Lord, and you should fear me. That's what Joel Whitman said. But anyways, Paul writes in verse 18, wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting to the Lord. I'm going to make a few statements on what not to do. Then I'm going to let Lori respond, and we're going to wrap it up. First, husbands cannot be demanding of his wife physically. You know, like Joel Webbon, I shouldn't, he said that preacher guy said, you should fear me and call me Lord. So that's the way it's going to be. Don't do that. Husband cannot ignore his wife's um, you can't ignore your wife most of the time and expect her to submit. Like she said, you can't just be absent, be at home, but be absent. There's no interaction, 6 out of 7 days. And then that last couple hours of a Friday night, I'm going to sit next to you.
Mm-hmm.
Where you been all week? Don't do that. So I'm going to let you elaborate on this whole submission thing, to your wife. So how should a wife submit to a loving husband? A loving husband, somebody that does all the good things that I've subscribed. So what does a submissive wife look like to somebody like him? And let me ask that first. I got another question. So you got a loving husband. So wife's got a loving husband, does what God wants. How should a wife respond?
Respond, I think, respectfully and showing love to your husband as well. And don't keep yourself from your husband, physically. If even if you're not in the mood or even if you're tired, even the Bible says don't keep yourselves from each other, because then you either drift apart or you can be tempted, to go elsewhere. So, and don't use physical intimacy as a weapon. Like, don't be, well, you didn't do whatever, so we're not going to be physical tonight. You're just going to have to wait until I'm not mad at you anymore or whatever. So don't use it as a weapon, and don't keep yourself from your husband.
And not trying to share our business, but kind of like Selena Frederick says in some of her podcasts that she says sometimes even when she's not in the mood, that once the physical enemy starts, she said, I'm doing this for him. Okay, and now I'm in the mood. Wouldn't you say that's pretty much true? So look, husbands, you may think I'm ready 25/7. 25/7. That's a man's mind.
Yeah.
You got to remember, our mind, we have these little blocks where they say compartmentalized. There's this, there's that, there's this. And the woman's mind is like just jumbled up.
Yeah.
You ever heard a woman telling a story? It goes this way, and it goes that way, and it goes this way, and it goes that way. Just how a woman's mind works. You may say, okay, it's Friday night, I'm getting ready, and who knows what she's thinking about something that's going to happen 3 days from now, or all these different thoughts in her head.
Yep.
So you gotta help her. You got husbands, you gotta help your wives and be loving and kind. And if you're doing so, she's going to say, okay, he's being loving, he's being kind, so I'm going to work with this. Is that right? All right. Probably. Okay. Next question is, so you got a wife out there who got a good husband, and he's doing what he can, but she's reluctant. What kind of advice you got to that reluctant wife with a good husband?
Talk about it.
Yeah, talk about it.
That's got communication.
Break down that wall. Break down the wall.
Sometimes you just need to submit whether you want to or not, like we talked about earlier, just because you want to keep that connection. Read the Bible, pray about it, because it's designed by God, so He's the one to go to when you're having problems. And then read books.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts like we do. We've got several of our favorites. So after you talked about it, you pray about it. I have about a 25-minute commute to work. It's not a terrible commute, but it's long enough to listen to a podcast.
Yep.
So that's a good time here if you work, or if you go anywhere in the car regularly, you can listen or while you're cleaning or whatever it is. Do those things to kind of help you
and even
get your mind right, I guess.
Some of those podcasts or books that you might not really want to read, like books about sexual intimacy, in the Christian faces. You might need to read those. If it's a Christian centered book about physical intimacy, you may want to read something like that. You know, you'd be like, well, I don't need to read that. Well, you might need to.
Mm-hmm.
It might help you. And can we talk about, just touch on the scheduling thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, when we went to our first marriage conference, we realized that we had a little wall between us and some issues we had to work through. Something that helped us, at the very first, we kind of, what do you say, advanced past all that.
Mm-hmm.
But, at first, it helped us to actually schedule our physical intimacy nights on the calendar. You might think that's crazy, but it helped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good start, you know. That way, and it probably helps for her more than it does me, because she can say, okay, Wednesday, it's Monday, so Wednesday night, I need to get my mind right. Wednesday night, I gave it my mind. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. What? Okay. So we're gonna move on. I think we covered everything. So
Yeah.
to build off your comments, I think it's important for a husband to be in touch with his wife. He should notice her subtleties, her mannerisms. You know how to read her. I'm getting better at that.
Yeah.
I can look at her and I can go, "You all right? There's something going on. What's going on with you?" You know, it might be something going on at school or something. I was like, "What's going on with you tonight?"
Mm-hmm.
The husband needs to be able to notice when something is not right. You know, I've gotten good at that the last couple of years. And there's probably been some times where I just kind of neglected or just didn't realize that's what I needed to do. But I've gotten better at reading her. Husbands, learn how to read your wives. Learn how to detect when something's not right or when something's good. Hey, what's going on? There might be something good that she wants to tell you, but you're like, okay, I gotta go. She's like, I was gonna tell him something good, but now he's gone. And when he comes back, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't got nothing good to tell you. It's all bad because you missed it. You missed it. Husbands, be in touch with your wives, because that's the difference. You're in touch with your wife. She's like, he's in touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
One more question for you and we're done. Would you say that knowing your husband is sensitive to your needs helps you to want to be submissive?
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah.
No, you're not just thinking about yourself all the time.
Yep. And sometimes it might not be that you're willfully blocking her off. You might say, okay, I got to go to this event or got to go to work or whatever. And then you leave and you're like, you know what? Man, she was trying to tell me something and I just missed it. I probably messed up. Yep. So this is a difficult episode, but I thought the one about, sharing spirituality together, I thought that was kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope it's been beneficial. Next week, hopefully before next year.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to summarize all this, the last few episodes we did, and we'll recap it and maybe add a few things that we missed. And a couple of weeks from now, we're going to start talking about marriage. What is marriage? I think we're going to talk off what marriage is not. Where the world gets marriage wrong. Even churches. I think churches get it wrong too.
Yep.
So that's it. So thank you for watching. You got anything to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you for watching. And hey, we are a Christ-centered marriage family, and we hope this benefits you. And God bless.